Welcome, guys, to Professor's Opinion. And on this video, I want to talk about what's going on in USA right now after Trump got elected. And basically, I want to talk about why Trump is trying to sell off the entire country and why everyone is rushing to invest in USA right now under Trump. What's the actual deal? And why you should be more wary about the current situation. But yeah, like first, I want to say that I haven't made videos in a while. I know that I've been busy with some other stuff, so I took a break from making YouTube videos, but I'm back now. For those of you who don't know, I'm making videos on this channel. It's a pretty new channel, so please subscribe if you can. And this channel will mainly be focused on trading, finances, and geopolitics and how they're intertwined. We'll talk about other stuff as well. But these are the main concepts that I want to focus on this channel. So yeah, let's get right to it. So if you guys haven't noticed yet, Trump has been elected and everyone's rushing to invest in USA, right? A lot of big investment coming in. Saudi Arabia says they're going to make $600 billion investment. You have the SoftBank CEO, Mayoshi, or whatever his name is. He's saying he's going to invest 400 billion or something. So yeah, a couple of $1 trillion of investment commitments have been made. But right now they're just commitments. That's the first thing. But the question is why? Are the regulatory policies going to be so vastly different under Trump than under Biden that everyone is rushing to invest right now? Well, I've made videos on this. USA manufacturing base does not have a competitive edge over rivals like China or Asia, rest of Asia, in terms of manpower, cost of production, cost of labor, everything. You name it. So the question is, why are all these big money managers rushing to invest into USA right now under Trump? And the simplest way to think about this is that under Trump, USA is up for sale. That's the simplest way to think about it. Okay. USA is up for sale. Trump is the seller. So if you want to buy up USA, now is the best opportunity. Like right now, what's happening in USA is pretty similar to what happened in UK in the 1980s, I believe, or 1970s, 60s, just after the British Empire ended and a few decades after that. What happened was basically all of UK big businesses, small local businesses, all of those were in dire straits and they were getting privatized or mainly being bought up by American corporate money and also other sovereign wealth funds money around the world. So now Qatar, like for example, is the largest landowner in London, something like that. So yeah, you have UK as a country still existing, but the actual people living in UK live in third world conditions. And the reason is because the government does not have much ownership of assets because they privatized the shit out of everything. And those assets were bought up by foreigners. So UK as a country still exists on paper, the British people still exist, the passport still exists, but the country as a whole is owned and controlled mostly by foreign investors. And the reason was pretty simple actually. You have a country that was living off its empire. And when the empire stopped existing, the companies in that country went bust. They were no longer profitable. They no longer had that competitive edge. And that's what happened in UK. And so they were bought up cheaply by foreign investors, mainly American corporate money and the sovereign wealth funds of Middle East. And so right now, if you look at USA, that's kind of what's happening. And the American empire is on its way out. That's pretty obvious. I mean, they're not going to go out quietly. They're going to fight a few wars here and there. Obviously, the British Empire did the same thing. They didn't go out quietly. They took out a bunch of loans to fight the Germans, even though they won the war, but at what cost? They were basically bankrupt and they had to repay all the debt to USA after the war, Second World War. And yeah, so obviously US is not going to go out quietly. They're going to fight a few wars and try to go out on their own terms, like the UK tried to do. But what's going to happen in the process is they're going to stack up a bunch of debt. And if you notice, all the big money investment that's being committed into USA right now under Trump, it's all from sovereign wealth funds or any other sort of money management groups that's has a lot of money in US dollar. So Saudi Arabia, yes, they committed $600 billion. Saudi Arabia holds a big amount of US treasury bonds. Okay, they know they're not going to get that any money back if they hold those bonds for 20, 30 years or whatever the timeline is. They know that even if they get the money back, it will have no value. So rather they'll cash in the checks right now and just buy up US businesses. It's really that simple. Okay. And same with like SoftBank. SoftBank, obviously, they do all their business in US dollar. So they have a big pile of US dollar in their banks, in their wealth funds, in their money piggy banks. And that's basically what they're doing right now. They don't want to hold the US dollar. They rather hold US businesses. And now, I mean, the other side of this coin is they can just convert the US dollar into some other currency and then buy up businesses, more competitive businesses in Asia. Why aren't they doing that? Well, converting that amount, a big amount of US dollar money, first of all, the first thing you have to do is you have to dump all those treasury bonds. The moment you start dumping all those bonds, because you have to understand, these big money managers, whether it's SoftBank, Saudi Wealth Fund, or whatever you want to name them, most of their dollar savings are in treasury bonds. They don't just have cash in the bank. They usually buy up treasury bonds for to stack up against inflation and all that. So if you want to convert the US dollar into some other country currency and invest in some other country where there's a better competitive edge, better market, better companies, the first thing you have to do is dump the treasury bond. Convert the treasury bond into US dollar before you can convert it into another currency. The moment you start doing that, as a fund management like SoftBank, the moment you start dumping all those billions of dollars of US treasury bonds, or like even Saudi Arabia, the moment you start doing that, you're gonna get that phone call from USA threatening you to stop, right? If you're an adversary of USA like China or some other country, sure, you can dump those bonds in the open market and you don't care too much. But if you're sort of an ally of USA like Japan, where SoftBank is located, or Saudi Arabia or something like that, you're not going to be able to just freely dump those treasury bonds on the open market and then convert those money into any other currency. Because you're going to get the phone call and it's going to be like, hey, you know, you're pushing you're pushing your limits, and we give you military security and all that garbage. So like the bottom line is the country's money that's denominated in US dollar treasury bonds, Saudi Arabia, Japan, wherever that money is now being rushed into USA, these are basically vassal states of the USA. So they don't have that sovereignty to just dump those treasury bonds, convert it into some other currency, and then invest in the Eastern world. They just don't have it. That's just the simple hard truth. At the same time, they don't want to hold these treasury bonds because they know the dollar is going down soon. So the best case scenario for them, without risking a conflict with USA, who is looking to get into conflicts, as every empire does when it's on its way out, it wants to pick a few fights. So they're basically not trying to use this opportunity under Trump to buy up US businesses. Biden didn't do that. Under Democrats, you couldn't just go out and buy up US businesses as a foreigner. Under Trump, you can. And that's why you have all this rush of billionaires and all these wealth funds rushing to invest money in USA. And Trump is now pitching that as a good thing. But basically, what he's doing is selling the country. He's privatizing a lot of government services, a lot of government lands, and that money that's flowing in into the country, that's not money that was denominated in some other currency. That's just the dollar savings that the vassal states had in their banks that they can't freely convert into another currency without getting the phone call from USA. And that's where the money is coming from. And so they'd rather own US businesses than hold the dollar because they know it's on its way out. And I guess the only difference between this and what happened in 80s with the UK pound is that even though the pound was crashing because the UK economy was not doing good, they had to print a lot of money to stimulate all that garbage. But even in the 1980s, the UK pound had a reliable uh, partner in US dollar. So they could peg the pound to US dollar and they could get some backing to stabilize the pound. If the dollar falls, they don't have anyone to rely on. Like that's the problem here. What a lot of people are, that's the fundamental difference, I guess. Okay. The British on their empire way out, they had the UK and the UK pound. The UK pound had US dollar to rely on to stabilize the pound as the empire declined to some extent. But the US dollar does not have that. They don't have a secured partner with a good currency to rely on with a strong economy or rising economy. So yeah, I mean, so what the USA is right now trying to do is basically they want to, they have a lot of resources. Trump is trying to get Canada and all that. I mean, look, I've talked about this before. Canada has always been a vassal state of USA, maybe not on paper, but everyone knew that if push comes to shove, USA could take Canada's natural resources. And right now, as the dollar is gonna crash, they need something to back it with. They don't have enough gold for it, so you have to use those natural resources. And they're gonna have to force countries, hey, you wanna buy our natural resources? You gotta use the dollar. That's how they're gonna keep the dollar up as they pile up the debt now. And whether it'll work, that's a different question. USA does have a lot of natural resources, no doubt about that. But what USA is doing is right now it's a high-end manufacturing country. It creates the software, the high-end tech, high-end manufacturing equipments, and all that. And you have the middle income, middle end manufacturing companies in Southeast Asia, China, Japan, Korea. And then you have the raw material exporters like Russia, the low end manufacturing countries. The high end manufacturing countries are the ones that are the richest and that gets the richest and stays the richest because you get a premium when you make the finished product rather than exporting the raw material. So, okay, fine. I mean, what US is doing right now is they're trying to go from that high end manufacturing economy to the raw material exporter. Will that make USA rich as a whole? No, it don't, because even you have countries like Russia, even they're natural resource exporters, sure, but it's all state owned. The money goes into the government's coffers. All the exporting that's done by the US natural resource companies is private. Maybe yes, the US government gets a bit of royalties here and there, but that's about it. So I mean, sure, if you encourage people around the world to buy US natural resources, you're kind of forcing them to use the US dollar, but it never really works that way. Like, if that was the case, Russia could have forced other countries to use the ruble since they're, and so like Saudi Arabia and the Middle East, they could have used their forced other countries to use their local currency to sell their oil. But that's not how it works. What works is military power equaling to financial and political power. And so that's the main thing here. I mean, sure, yeah, Trump is trying to sell the country and sell more natural resources around the world. Sure, that will help to prop up the dollar in the short run. But the final decision on the future of the dollar will be determined by US military. It's really that simple, okay? Because there will be wars, and China is getting ready for that war. And that war will be fought, whether you like it or not, whether USA wants to or not. I mean, there'll be a lot of rhetoric to avoid it. They're doing a lot of proxy wars right now, but a time will be reached, a point will be reached where other countries don't want to get involved in the mess between China and USA anymore. And so then US and China will have to face each other. And look, it's similar to what happened between UK and Germany. I mean, First World War, Second World War, Germany was the ambitious one. They're fighting a lot of proxy wars around the world, challenging UK's dominance, imperialism around the world, playing the spoil maker. And but point was reached where those colonies just didn't want to be a part of Germany and UK's fight. Then Germany and UK had to face each other face to face in the First World War, Second World War. And so yeah, these proxy wars are good for now, but a point will be reached where the other countries don't want to get be bogged down and destroyed by the war between US and China. And so the US and China will have to face each other face to face. Maybe it'll be over Taiwan. Maybe there are other issues in the Pacific Ocean. China does claim historical rights to a lot of the Pacific Ocean. So it'll be a war on the seas, that's for sure. And that war will determine the fate of the US dollar. Not these natural resources, crypto, investment, none of these will actually matter as much as that war. And that war is coming. It could happen under Trump. I think the more likely scenario is a war between Iran and the West under Trump. Okay. I think what Trump is gonna do is, keep China on this back foot on the other side for now and go for Iran in his turn. It's a better political play for him, for his base. And it's eerily similar to what happened towards the end of the Roman Empire. They fought a war against the Persians, and they never lost a war against the Persians before that war, and they were destroyed. Okay, and that's more likely to happen because the Persians and the Western civilizations have been enemies forever. And the decline of the Roman Empire, one of the critical turning point was the loss of the Roman army in the war against the Persians. That was one of the critical turning point for the decline of the Roman Empire. And look, history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. So my forecast is that the next big war will be between Iran and the Western world. But like I said, US dollar is on its way out, and the final fate, the final nail in the coffin will be the war between US and China. That's just my take on that.